Welcome to Office Talk. Today's question is best advice for recomp. So recomposition, burning fat, building muscle simultaneously. I'm super patient and I don't want to deal with bulks and cuts. First, to get into this, we have to define what a recomposition is. And it really goes beyond just burning fat and building muscle simultaneously, because if you take a year of your training and nutrition and you spend time dieting for fat loss, maintaining, transitioning to a gaining phase, gaining some size, maintaining, and then transitioning to another cut, throughout that year, you have successfully built muscle and burned fat. So if you look at a before and after of a year progress picture different and it's periodized properly, you are gonna see recomposition. Maybe the same weight, but less fat, more muscle in the later. But if you just put those two up and say recomposition without any dates, we're assuming that this happens simultaneously, as in I am continually burning fat and building muscle, which most of the time is not the case. 90% of the time, this is almost impossible. And yes, you can burn fat and build muscle simultaneously, not literally physiologically speaking at the same exact time, because typically you're either catabolic or anabolic, depending on the state of your eating, your training, your sleeping, things like that. However, there are times over the course of months where you can lose body fat and build muscle. And usually that happens after an injury, or when somebody is brand new to lifting, or we have a dramatic change in the way we are doing things. So with those examples, I had a surgery on my knee last year and I didn't train for 3 solid months. When I came back to proper nutrition and proper training, I did rebuild muscle and burn fat. The transformation was pretty insane, especially for an advanced lifter like myself, but that's a very rare circumstance because I was injured. I had surgery and I was out of the gym for 3 months. For a beginner, anything's gonna work. You're creating a new stimulus that is creating adaptation after adaptation. So if you take somebody who has never trained before and hasn't really tracked macros or anything, and you put them on a good diet and you put them on a smart training program, they are going to build muscle and burn fat simultaneously over the course of the first 6 months to a year of their training career. And then in our last example, if you take somebody, for example, who is doing Olympic lifting, they've been Olympic lifting for years now, and you dramatically change their training to bodybuilding and dieting for bodybuilding, they might see a recomposition because the stimulus you are providing is so new and novel. However, those 3 scenarios are all pretty rare, except the beginner. Obviously, there's always gonna be beginners, and at that, it runs out after a while. So a recomposition strategy isn't really any scientific or specifically designed strategy at the beginner stage. It's just training. It's just training and dieting, and you are going to see recomp because you're so new and you haven't had these stimuluses provided yet. So in the context of everybody else, which is that 90% of people, recomposition is much less likely to happen. So the options we have here to achieve recomposition are 2 things. The first option is taking a longer period of time. So if you're somebody who's like, I do want to recomp, and like this individual who asked the question, I'm patient, I still think you should go through gaining phases and dieting phases and fat loss phases, because if we're just staying at maintenance, which would be probably what we'd want to do, eat maintenance calories, make sure your nutrient timing, your supplementation, your sleep, your training is progressive, and you just stay patient for months on end, you are not only moving at such a slow snail pace that it's hard to see any progress and get motivated at all, you're making minimal progress because you're not far enough on either end of the spectrum. So I would rather have somebody take time trying to build muscle for 3, 4, 5, 6 months straight, where you're just eating in a slight surplus, trying to avoid too much fat accumulation, but really trying to build muscle during that phase. Then spend a solid month just maintaining, kind of bringing your calories back, finding that maintenance, and then jumping into a serious diet for another 3 to 6 months, depending on how much weight there is to lose in body fat. And at the end of that year, you will have successfully recomped because you will be bigger from a muscular standpoint and leaner from a fat standpoint. And when you get to that point, you can essentially rinse and repeat. So this time when you dive into a gaining phase, you'll probably stay leaner throughout that gaining phase because you're more experienced and you're starting from a better place because of this year-long periodized plan that you have attacked. Option 1 is always my favorite. I would rather have an individual committed to the process and using different phases, because just eating at maintenance can be stressful at times and it's very unmotivating. Now, the other option would be to eat at maintenance, optimize everything you possibly can, and just slowly progress and being okay with that slow progression. What you're gonna need to do is lifting it up with a progressive model that allows you to literally see progressive overload happening on a weekly or bi-weekly basis for months on end. So you know for a fact you're getting stronger, you're building muscular endurance, and if you can do more in the gym, most likely you are seeing some kind of hypertrophy on the scale or in the mirror. You're gonna wanna do measurements as well, and you should probably be trying to attack a very, very slow rate of gain, because by definition, if you're recomping, or even if you're building muscle without any fat accumulation at all, you're probably gonna gain a little bit of weight over time, unless you have a lot of fat to lose. Now, in this process, eating at maintenance, you're gonna wanna have a diet that is efficient in carbs and efficient in protein and moderate in fats. In my experience, that tends to work best because carbs are the dominant fuel for training. They're gonna support muscle growth more, and protein is obviously a necessity when it comes to muscle growth. Fats are very important, they are essential, but if we eat too much fat, it's very hard to stay lean during that process. So if we're really trying to get meticulous, I want somebody eating high carb, high protein, moderate fat. I want them training 6 days a week, a mix of conditioning and bodybuilding or strength training. We're gonna be making sure that we're taking the necessary supplements like creatine, fish oil, multivitamin, the basics. We're gonna make sure we're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and we're gonna keep our NEAT pretty high. And last but not least, we're probably gonna be pretty meticulous with nutrient timing and trying to optimize every little thing, because all these little things that make a 1% difference become much, much more important if you are trying to accomplish recomp simultaneously, because you need to pull out all the tools you have. So at the end of the day, can you recomp? Yes. But we have to define what recomp is. Are we talking simultaneously? Yes, you can, but it's a slow, somewhat unmotivating process and usually left only for beginners. Or B, you can take a longer period of time in recomp because you take a gaining phase, a maintenance phase, and a fat loss phase, and cycle those phases properly to, by the end of time, achieve that recomposition goal. And the last thing I will say is that the only other scenario where recomp is easily possible is with an obese and sedentary individual. If somebody comes to us and they have 80 to 100 pounds to lose, they don't have a lot of experience training, and they really make a huge lifestyle transformation, of course they are going to build muscle while in a deficit chasing fat loss. But usually when people think recomp, we're talking about the lean individual burning more fat and building more muscle at the same time. And it's almost never possible. And when it is, it's meticulous, unmotivating, and it's not as recommended as a periodized plan.